Hi everyone, Lynda here, the scrapbooking photographer. Welcome back to my channel. Thanks for joining me today. I'm heading into the Mixed Media Mayhem YouTube hop where we have a beautiful sketch this week to follow. So this sketch has been done in autumn tones, but I am going to follow more of a purple lavender look to go with this photo of my mum and myself in a lavender garden some time ago. So what I've got out is the Harvest Blessings stamp from Close to My Heart. I know this is supposed to be wheat and things, but I think this could double as lavender, so I'm going to try that. And I've also got my die cuts out just to add a few different flowers and also some leaves. This is the fun set I used in a video a few days ago, so I'm going to play with that a little bit more. I'm going to try something a little bit different using the Distress Oxides on the background and also on some watercolour Distress cardstock, just to give it a little bit of texture when I make the flowers and the things on top. So without any further ado, let's get started. My background sheet of paper is from the Life's a Hoot pack, and I thought the purple tonings combined well with the lavender, and it's sort of blended with the lighter colours, so it's not just a straight colour, which will work nicely with what I've got in my head anyway for this sketch. So I'm gutting the middle out of this after taking the branding strip, or what we call the zip strip, off, and I just want it to give a little bit of a frame around the outside of the white cardstock, which I'll do most of the work on. So in line with the sketch, I'm ripping the sides of the white daisy, so it's got a torn look all the way around. And even though the core of the paper is white and so it may not make too much difference, I am making sure that the torn edge is on the same side all the way around. And just using my left hand to guide it so that it doesn't tear too much into the main part of the paper. And then I'll just run my hands around the outside, folding it gently so that it gives a little bit more dimension as it kind of curls in towards the page a little bit. And then working out where it's going to sit the best, I'm just going to rip a couple of little peepholes. In fact, I only need to rip one extra up the top because there is one sort of already there from my tearing down on the bottom, and I may add a third a bit later. So here I am just going around the outside with my black clip pen, just drawing a couple of freehand lines to further frame what we're going to do on the inside. And by drawing a couple of little circles in the corners, it kind of looks like knots. So very rough, and it sort of matches with the tearing, I think. So I can put the background piece to one side, and then using Distress Oxides, I'm going to blend antique linen and brushed corduroy. So I've sprayed them with a little bit of water, and then I am just mixing them together and using a piece of plastic, it's actually a little plastic card envelope thingy, to smush some of the more mustardy colour that we've come up with onto the white daisy. And then I can pop that to one side to dry, and then bring in the watercolour Distress cardstock. This cardstock has two sides, and I'm going to use the side that's a little bit more textured. The colour that I'm starting with is Dusty Concord, and I've just put a little bit on the all-purpose mat, which you'll see me do again now, and then spray it with water. So being a Distress Oxide, it reacts quite well with the water, and with the watercolour cardstock, it gets soaked up quite well, as opposed to if you just did it on white daisy. But you could do it on white daisy if that's all you had. So then I've got enough of the main darker colour, and I've done that first because I want that to be the dominant colour on this piece of cardstock. But as you can see, there's quite a little bit of white around the outside, and whilst I want some white left on the piece, I also want some of the lighter colour that we've used on the background on the white daisy. So I've brought in the antique linen and the brushed corduroy again and mixed them together with some water, and then I can use the paintbrush to put it in some particular places where I want it, and then I can smush the rest onto the gappy bits and use the paintbrush to spread it around. So I'll do that a couple of times just to get some decent coverage. There is no right or wrong way to do this. Every time I do it, it comes out differently. So it's a really good way to just get a unique piece of paper that you can use to cut things out of. So you can see there that I have also sprayed the water onto the cardstock a little bit, and that just helps it all to blend even better. And then I can use the brush to smush it around a bit, and I think that will probably do. So I'll pop that to one side, and it won't take too long to dry, but while it does, I'll bring in the middle piece that we gutted out of the background paper, and I'm going to use that to frame the photo. The photo is measuring 3 by 3, so I've cut the paper to 4 by 4, and I'm just going around the outside with the Tim Holtz Distress tool to rough up the edges a little bit. And that'll be in keeping with what we did around the outside of the white daisy as well. And just to bring in a little bit of softening, I'm adding a piece of vellum in between the photo and that background paper. So I've cut that to about 3.5 by 3.5. And once that's all stuck together, I'll do the same as I did with the white daisy and just crinkle up the outside around that little bit as well. So it helps you to see the distressed bit as well and gives it a little bit more dimension and a bit of texture on the page. Now the watercolour paper is dry, I've brought it back in with what's left of the gutted background, and I'll cut a 4 by 6 piece to make some sun rays that we saw in the sketch. So what I should have done was stamp them first, but I've got this Dream Maker stamp, and there's 2 pieces in it I'm going to use, which I'm taking off there. And I've reconstructed what I cut for the sun rays so that I can add this text stamp and the other textured one as well. And I don't really care if they match or if they're in line. I'm just putting them over the top of the sun rays so that we end up with just a little bit of black on those extra bits. And I'll also bring in the other piece of paper while we've got it, because I want the same effect on what I'm going to cut into flowers. So I'm not positioning these anywhere special, I'm just making them fit, and some of them aren't even stamping completely, and that's okay too. It's just giving a very rough look to what we had painted beforehand. Now this little piece is a little bit of the lighter part from the paper, and I'm going to use that part for the leaves and so I can keep more of the more purpley stuff for the flowers. So they pop out quite nicely and just have that textured look rather than a plain colour. So I'm loving the way this is coming out. Putting the flower thin cuts on, again in no particular order, just so that they fit on the piece of paper that we've got, and I'll run them through the Cuttlebug, and then they'll just pop out and we can make a few different piles of leaves and flowers from both the painted cardstock that we did and also what's left of the gutted background. So I'm interested to see how other people interpret this sketch, and I'll list a few of the other participants below in the description, but I'll also add a link to the Mixed Media Mayhem Facebook group and the album where people are popping the photos of their finished sketches. So it's always interesting to see what other people come up with and watch their videos. I'm sure they'll include a link underneath their images. So have a look and get some inspiration from everybody else as well. So you can see here I'm making a couple of little piles, and they're just popping out. They're all different, so it makes them all quite unique. So now all the components are made, I can bring back the white daisy and get a bit of an idea of how it'll all fit together. So I've popped the photo where I think it's going to go, and then with my stamp of wheat/lavender, I'm just trying out what's going to be best. Now I did try some normal stamping ink, but in the end I decided that a mixture of a secondary stamp of black and some of the Dusty Concord Distress Oxide would work best together. Now I'm not going directly on top of each other, I'm offsetting them, so it's almost like a double exposure effect. And I've done 3 little areas of the lavender so that I can build up around them with the flowers. But while I've got the stamp out, I'll also do the little peepholes. So popping the white daisy on top of the background, I've got this little double leaf that also is in the wheat pack, and I'm just lining that up behind the peepholes that we cut before. And then I also decide I want a third, so I take a little chunk of white daisy away from the left hand side and pop another little stamp in behind there. And I will have to touch up that little piece of Le Pen as well going down that left side, but that's pretty easy to do with the freehand drawing. So you can see there that I've stamped it and haven't quite taken enough of the white daisy out to be able to see it properly. So I have to make that little peephole a bit bigger, and that's where I make even more of a hash of the drawing, so I can fix that pretty easily. So now I can stick that white daisy down so that I've got the peepholes where I want them, and then I can fix up the black lines around the outside that I mucked up a little bit. And just to add a little bit of character to those lines, I'm going around adding just a few little squiggles, which makes it look a little bit more knotted, and I think adds a little bit of character to it. So I've popped the photo down, and I'll just dry fit some of the leaves around it to get an idea how it'll work. When I'm happy with that, I'll stick the photo down because I think it's easier to work around it whilst it's in place. So then I can start with the leaves down on the bottom right hand corner, and I'm not quite sure where that one will go, so I'll put it to one side. But this group of leaves down in the bottom right hand corner add a nice border to the photo and also cover a little bit of the empty space around the lavender down the bottom. Now those 2 that are going over the photo, I'm using a little bit of foam tape underneath them just to lift them up a little bit and give a little bit more of depth behind them. Now I'll put these sun rays in next. I nearly forgot about them, so I'll try and line them up as best I can, although it doesn't really matter, and I do want ones with the more purple on them to be on the left hand side to cover where it is the more lighter brown underneath, so that they show out against the background. So I've tried to get them in the right spot. I think there's one I just need to trim at the end so that it looks right, and that one second from the right, yes, there we go, chop the top off that, and I'm happy with the way they have spread out. And then I can add some flowers, and pretty much as I go. I'm not going to lie them out and see if they fit, because I never get them back where I had them in the first place anyway. So I'll just build up from the bottom, making sure that we can still see the stems of lavender out of the top, and mixing between what we did on the watercolour cardstock and what we did with the background paper, and swapping some of the centres around too, so it's a good mixture of the different mediums that we used. I quite like the different textures that are coming together in this layout, and I know I'm going to have some of the flowers left over, so I'll be able to put them to one side and use in my junk journal. Keep an eye out for a video about my junk journal coming in the next few, not quite sure, but I'm putting something together now and getting a handle on it before I share what I've been doing there, but it's quite fun. Anyway, back to this layout. I'm just putting this extra flower down the bottom here so that the flowers down the left hand side follow more of an S type shape around the photo. And I'm adding in some silver glitter gems into the middle of the flowers. That one just needed a little extra centre put in around it so that the gem didn't look quite so lost. So once I've got the gems in place on all the flowers, I think it looks quite pretty. I've just got a couple of stamps that I want to add in, both from the Dream Maker set. The first one is Love You down the bottom there, and I'm doing them both in black. The second one is Thankful for You, and I'm just putting that up on the top right hand corner, which fits nicely in there to fill up that little piece of white space, and it's quite appropriate for the photo of me with my mum. So I've punched out 3 little hearts from some leftover of the watercolour distress cardstock, and I'll just pop them, one down in the bottom corner, one up by the title, and one next to the Love You down the bottom. And I'll put a smaller silver glitter gem in each one. And that's it for my layout. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed putting it together. So enjoy the close-ups that follow, and thank you so much for watching. Happy crafting, everyone.